Hey to anyone visiting from Subscribestar, and to those who are just curious as to what the video is about. Now, I'd gone on for a half-hour talk about this originally before deciding maybe I should cut it back to closer to 5 minutes, so we'll see how that goes. First off, I'm Catrice McLeod, and I'm currently working on the tabletop role-playing game of Saorsa. Now, I have the better part of a decade in experience with game design, and longer than that with writing and world design. Most of that experience has been with video games, which puts me at a bit of a unique advantage in the TTRPG market, in that video games are substantially farther ahead in terms of things like player psychology. Like, decades ahead of tabletop role-playing games. It's kind of an unfair comparison at this point. I haven't been able to transfer all of that design knowledge, but I'd say a good 80% still holds true between mediums. And after looking through my competition in the TTRPG design market, well, let's just say the industry is sorely in need of someone with cross-experience from video games to fix some lingering issues which have been around for decades. I'm just uniquely qualified to deal with a lot of these issues since I have the experience in other areas of design and don't have my hands tied by corporate interests putting profits before gameplay. As it stands, pretty much the entire industry is either inexperienced or restricted by their producers or limited to rules like games, which isn't really offering a whole lot of options for a top-tier RPG to make its way to the market. I can change this, and so I am. So, why Subscribestar? I mean, looking at my older videos, I had a Patreon logo all over them, so what gives? Well, first off, let's cover the alternatives. I've run a Kickstarter campaign before when working at the now defunct Spicy Rocket Studios, and learned you basically need a team of about 4 people to run the Kickstarter itself. Otherwise, it'll cut severely into the time needed to make the game itself. There's no real point in having money if you have no time to actually spend it on making the game. Since this is a one-woman operation, I just don't have the time to do it. I could write up a business plan easily and send it to a bank or other investor, but then they have the Saorsa IP to hold hostage and may try to force an early release or start making decisions based on profit that harm the game itself, so I'm not willing to risk that. Same thing with various publishers, so I'm gonna have to do this through a more open model like Patreon or Subscribestar. The thing is, Patreon started showing its ideological fanaticism, and once someone starts doing that, we've seen where it goes countless times in the past. First they go after a few big, obvious heavy hitters to make an example of them, and then they use that as precedent to start bullying others into compliance with their dogma. I'm heavily biased towards free speech, and I don't want the snowflakes screwing with my game any more than I want the corporations doing so. And as such, Patreon's just not a valid option for me any longer. The quality of the game has to come first and foremost, before anything else. There are too many other games that have been held back as it is, and there seriously needs to be a singular example, which is so much higher quality than everything else on the market, that it can drag the entire industry kicking and screaming into the modern era. So, to that end, I need your help. I can do the game design part. At this point, Saorsa is in the late alpha testing stages and is already at curb-stomping levels of quality compared to its opposition, but even through the generous donations I've received already, and my own life savings poured into it, there are still some few things that are out of my price range currently. I need a lot more artwork than I have so far. At some point I'm gonna need a quality editor because it's nearly impossible to edit your own work. I'd also like localization for other languages, but to get the good stuff, it isn't cheap. In addition to that, it'd be kind kinda nice if I made enough to cover things like, you know, rent, food, and so on, so I can produce more content full time. I designed Saorsa so I can produce additional expansions at a rate of about 1 per 2 to 3 months by myself, where I can just build entire new worlds with heaps of lore, new game mechanics, and so on. I've also worked as a ghostwriter in the past and have a few novels lined up that I'd like to get out as well, set within Saorsa's setting. So this all means I need money to do so. The base game of Saorsa will be free to play. Donations are appreciated, and I fully expect with a high enough quality level, people will literally be going, "Shut up and take my money." But I'd really like to not have to rely on the hope of such. If I could get an actually steady income stream from this, like, not only could I reduce the cost of expansion content significantly, if I make my goal of about 2,000 US per month, I should be set to just release all future content free of charge. Anyway, you'll be getting by far the highest quality tabletop RPG on the market, free of cost, whether you support me or not. But it'll look prettier, probably have a nicer layout, and potentially free expansion content if you do support me. Plus all the subscriber benefits such as early alpha access to new content. So yeah, thanks for listening in, and hopefully this gives you an idea of what to expect. Feel free to check some of my other videos on YouTube for a bit more detail about what's being worked on, and I should have new videos coming out all this year. I'm going to aim for a bi-weekly or monthly schedule so I don't get too far behind on the work of the game itself. Either way, whether you support me directly or not, I hope you'll enjoy Saorsa and all it has to offer.